Hi everyone, welcome to the Corporate Buddy. In today's video, I'm going to be sharing 5 things you should do in your first 90 days at your new job. These are some of the things that I did as I just recently started a new job, and I found some of these things very helpful. So I'm going to share them with you, and hopefully you can take 1 or 2 things to help you get started. Hey, don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel. If you like my videos or if you found any of it useful, please don't forget to subscribe, and let's jump into it. So the number 1 thing that you absolutely want to do when you start a new job is to set up regular syncs with your manager. Whatever the cadence you want that to be, if it's gonna be a weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, typically I will start off with something that's more regular, like a weekly one-on-ones, and then over time, once I get comfortable and I understand what my work plan is, then I start to increase the frequency, reduce the frequency of that. So the one-on-ones would mostly in the beginning help you develop a work plan. So you need to understand what your detailed work plan looks like, what your 90-day, your 30 days, 90 days, and like 1 year plan looks like. You want a detailed breakdown of that so you know exactly what you're doing, and then you set your goals with your manager. Like, what does success look like? How do you want to quantify the success? Who are your major stakeholders? Who are like the main, I guess, decision makers within the group, within the company, and who should you be having as kind of like a regular body? So like you're trying to define success in these meetings, so you're making sure that you're coming prepared for these one-on-ones. Usually you will be the one to set it up, so I typically will set it up and put it on my manager's calendar. You have to drive your success. You have to be in the driver's seat, so make sure that you are in control and you're taking charge of that time you have with your manager. Your manager is probably very busy and might have other direct reports, so you want to make things easier for them and be able to have like a list of things, like an agenda that you want to talk about in every one-on-one. The second thing that you absolutely need to get done within your first 90 days is to identify your stakeholders. So now you have your work plan, you've developed that work plan with your manager. Most likely you have, he or she has identified who you need to be working closely with on different projects. And if you don't know that, make sure you ask your manager who are the primary stakeholders. Once you have them identified, start setting up one-on-ones with those people as well. So prepare for these meetings. You know, just reach out to them, send an email. Hey, can I grab like 30 minutes on your calendar or 15 minutes on your calendar to just introduce myself? I just joined the company. I typically prepare like a template. I had a template for my job that I sent to different stakeholders. And it just kind of goes, you know, what I just said right now. Hey, you know, I'm new to the company and this is my work, my job description. This is what I'm going to be doing, and I think, you know, I would like to get to know more about what you do and how we can collaborate in the future. So try to keep it simple, short. Classify those stakeholders as you're talking to them. Understand how they play a role in your projects. You know, what's their influence, what power do they have, and like kind of divide those up so you know how to interact. Understand their communication style. How do they prefer to interact in the workplace? All of these things, pay attention to them as you're getting to know them. This is the time you can ask as many questions as you want because you're new. So no stupid questions here, of course with discretion. Try to get to know everybody. You also present something about yourself. So I would typically go into these kind of meetings with like PowerPoint, like short slides about myself, and also give the other person a chance to tell me about themselves. And sometimes, you know, these meetings can take different turns in terms of, you know, people can decide to talk a lot about their experience. Make sure you're listening to that and taking notes and learning about what they do and how it would play a role in your work. And then the last thing, you also want to make sure that you're identifying people that you think you can learn from directly. I mean, of course you should be able to learn from everybody, but there are some people that you can take on as buddies that can help you make your transition into the company and into the organization much easier. People that you can go to for different types of questions, people that can serve as like advocates, or like, you know, people that you can go bounce things off of. Basically, try to identify those people in your first 90 days so you can have them as part of your support system. So the third thing that you want to do in your first 90 days is to build trust. So trust is a huge part of every relationship, including working relationships. So you want people to be able to trust you, that first of all, you're good at your job, and second of all, when you say you're going to do something, you're going to do it. And different ways that I try to do this was identifying pain points. So as I'm talking to different stakeholders, I'm trying to identify what are their pain points, what are things that they need help with, and can I suggest solutions to those things. Of course, cautiously. You don't want to be the new person that's like pointing out all the bad things and all the things that are wrong with the team or the organization. So just cautiously try to understand what's keeping this person up at night, and how can I help out in this first 90 days. And then you also want to share things about yourself. You know, be vulnerable as much as comfortable as you feel. Be vulnerable about, like, you know, some of the things that you're learning and your growth process, where you're coming from and where you want to go. Try to, you know, if you can share a few like personal things about yourself, of course not too personal. Discretion, guys, discretion. But whatever you feel like you're comfortable sharing to help build that trust. And also ask the other person questions and try to get to know them, so you know how you can interact with them, because people are so different and they have different ways that they prefer to interact in the workplace. So try to pay a lot of attention in your first 90 days and adapt to working styles. Like, for example, when I started at my current role, the company has like 2 different types of communication platforms that people communicate through, and I observed that some people prefer one over the other. So I made it a point of duty to make sure to ask people, how do you prefer for me to reach out to you? You know, do you prefer emails? Do you prefer Slack? Do you prefer Teams? And you know, I try to adapt accordingly to those. So I'm like able to build trust with them. Like, you know, whichever one you prefer, I would work with you on that. And when you commit to something in your, like those, of course, whenever you're working, when you commit to something, make sure that you're actually coming through on those commitments. But especially in your first 90 days, you want to make sure that when you say you do something, maybe a small task that someone asked for you to do, or you committed to helping someone with something, make sure that you're coming through on those commitments, because all these things ultimately help build trust. So the fourth thing, which is closely tied to the third thing on building trust, is to add value. Look for ways that you can add value to the organization real quick within those first 90 days. I know it's crazy. Most people don't even know what their job is about in the first 90 days. But you can reach for like low-hanging fruit, like, you know, things that maybe small tasks that nobody really wants to do, or you feel like people like are kind of just struggling with, or they've been trying to get it done for a while and it's not being done. If you feel like you can do it, offer to do it. Like I said, low-hanging fruit, things that are simple, things that are easy to accomplish, things that you know, using the SMART rules that fit that SMART rule. Try to see if you can volunteer to do those things, because that's part of the way you can add value pretty quickly. For me, for example, after I identified my projects, I saw that there was one of the projects that I could actually complete really quickly after I already drafted out the plan for the project. I came up with a plan and I realized that, oh, this is actually something that could be done within like a few months. So I was able to actually deliver my first project within the first 90 days, which I was really excited about, because it gave me an opportunity to show that, hey, you can trust me and I'm here to actually add value to the team. So make sure that you look out for those and pay attention, listen and ask important questions. So even if you can't if you can't deliver a project within the 90 days, you can contribute questions, because more often than not, a lot of people, when they join a new organization, people want their fresh perspective. People have blind spots when they've been working on a project or within a team for a long time, and when you're coming in as a new person, you can add value by providing a fresh perspective to the people there. So listen and ask important questions that they might not have been paying attention to, and that's another way to add value. And then finally, the fifth thing that you should do in your first 90 days is to give yourself grace. Give yourself grace. I know for me, I was a little bit anxious coming into this role because I was entering the tech industry for the first time, and I wasn't exactly sure what to expect. And I feel like I might have put a little bit of pressure on myself in the beginning, but you need to learn to give yourself grace. You're going to hear of this thing, imposter syndrome, a lot. Make sure that you're paying attention to that. Understand that everybody struggles when they're going into something new. There's a learning curve. So give yourself grace, pay attention to your emotions, pay attention to how you're moving through different phases. The process is really, really important, guys. The process is something that, when we actually lean in more into the process, we get to appreciate where we're coming from, where we are, and where we're going. So don't be in so much of a rush to get to a certain level or compare yourself to people that have been at the organization for quite some time. You're new. Remember that, and everybody expects you to have questions. Everybody expects you to be confused. Everybody expects you to not know what the heck you're doing, at least for the first 6 months or even a year sometimes in some roles. So don't get hung up on mistakes. If you make mistakes, it's okay, learn from them. That's the biggest thing, and I continue to tell myself that even right now after my 90 days. Learn from your mistakes. They help you grow, they help you see different perspectives to things, and then pay attention to your strengths and weaknesses. This is an opportunity for you to actually relax and be the newbie. So you get to learn new things about yourself. You're in a new role, you're learning new things, you're identifying new skills that you could find useful. So try to see things that pay attention to your strengths that would help you to be successful within the role, but also pay attention to your weaknesses so you know how to grow them, how to improve on them, and how to actually leverage them. Even you can leverage your weaknesses. So those are the 5 things that I think you should do in your first 90 days. I've done these things, I've gone past my first 90 days, and I'm happy to be out of that phase, but also getting more acquainted with the role, and it's been very exciting. If you have any specific questions or you would like to talk about some of these things that I shared here, feel free to reach out to me on Instagram at The Corporate Baddie. Again, please don't forget to subscribe and like this video if you found it useful. Bye.